free. I know how it feels to be free, to be free, to be free, to be free. Hey, I know how it feels to be free, to be free, to be free, to be free. Deep down in my soul, I know how it feels to be free, to be free, to be free, to be free. One of these old mornings, and it won't be long, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside. One of these old mornings, and it won't be long, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside. One of these old mornings, I ain't gonna study war no more, and the wicked shall cease from their troubling down by the riverside. One of these old mornings, these old mornings, these old mornings, and it won't be long when the wicked cease from their trouble, and I ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. One of these old mornings, and it won't be long, the wicked shall cease from their trouble, and I ain't gonna study war no more, and I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. Down by the riverside. One of these old mornings, and it won't be long, I'm gonna lay down, 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 down by the riverside. So I I come from a tradition where we tarry. Can we just tarry a little bit? Overcome when the battle is won. We shall 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 overcome when the battle is won.
Hello. I'm Joyce DeYoung. I feel like I shouldn't turn my back here, but here we go, right over there. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. So I'm the Dean of Michigan State University College of Osteopathic Medicine. And this is this is the 25th anniversary of the William G. Anderson Slavery to Freedom Lecture Series. What a great introduction to freedom, slavery to freedom. I couldn't think of a better introduction, so thank you. And it's really an honor to be here to experience this really impactful series of speakers. It's only I'm starting my second year now, and every time I'm just so impressed with the speakers. But so really, thank you to all of you who are here tonight. I know that there are a number of you who are attending virtually, and I've suggested, because sometimes the weather holds people up, or we end up canceling, we should move the whole month to June. But that's okay. We can't do that, right? Okay. All right. We're here. It's February, and we're here. So thank you so much for coming here. I'm really excited to be here for Reverend okay, here we go. Osagyefo Sekou. How'd I do? All right, it's you. Okay, all right. And the Freedom Fighters. So I'm really looking forward to hearing you speak tonight, learning more about your work in diverse roles, including being an activist, a theologian, an author, and obviously a musician. He was also selected for Ebony Magazine's Power 100 and the NAACP History Makers. So, and in addition to hearing him speak, and in a conversation with Dr. Gilbert, who I'll turn this over to in a second, we're really looking forward to hearing more music from Reverend Sekou and the Freedom Fighters a little later tonight in this event. So thank you again for joining, whether you're here in person or virtually, and I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Marita Gilbert, the Associate Dean of Diversity and Campus Inclusion for our college, who leads this series. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Would you like your own microphone? Oh, is this your microphone? Yes. No?
Thank you. Okay. Now, I don't know about y'all. Y'all were sitting in y'all seat. I was trying. Dave, I don't know what we were thinking about when I was like, yeah, we won't have a podium. I'm going to just sit there. Y'all know how I was going to be with the live music? That was my bad. Thank you, Dean DeYoung, for that warm welcome. Thank you for being here with us tonight. To each of you joining us, whether you are here in the room or you're joining us virtually, hello, and welcome to the 25th William G. Anderson Slavery to Freedom series, An American Odyssey. So yes, this looks a little different. We have something special tonight, and you've already had a little appetizer. Before we kind of carry on with that, I want to ask you if you would join me in silent reflection as I read the Michigan State Land Grant Acknowledgement. Michigan State University occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the university resides on land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. We recognize Michigan's 12 federally recognized Native nations, historic indigenous communities in Michigan, indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences. I'm going to invite to the stage now Janae Washington, freshman music performance student in the MSU College of Music, who will sing the Black National Anthem. I'm going to ask you to rise as she sings.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you so much, Janae. This is our freshman music student, so thank you. Yes, yes. So I want to take a moment just to pause. I mentioned that this is the 25th year of doing this series. I want to think about, if I may with you all, the impact of the series. The Michigan State University College of Osteopathic Medicine has been bringing impactful speakers. We've been bringing impactful speakers to the campus and to you all for a quarter of a century, right? Let's think about that, like the longevity of the series. We've been providing the community with the opportunity to hear from iconic leaders of freedom movements here in the US. We've worked to bring intergenerational and multidisciplinary perspectives to reflect on the richness of our histories and herstories, while being really intentional about looking forward toward opportunities to make the world better for all of us. This is a particularly important moment to commemorate Black histories and herstories, and as our ancestors did, really dream into the future while we're working to bring it to fruition, right? That we don't just dream while standing still, but we place our hands and hearts to the task. And in this milestone of 25 years, we've had any number of speakers and thought leaders, right? Civil rights activists and advocates who've shared their experiences with us. And in those 25 years, and certainly recently, some of them have joined the ancestors. We've had thought leaders and social justice advocates who challenged us to build on the sacrifices made by visionaries from our past to envision even greater futures. And we've recently started to hear more and more from the next generation about freedom dreams. Y'all, we've had a front seat to history. Think about that. And in these 25 years, there's been triumph, there's been some sorrow, but we're still here. We're still here, y'all. We are still here. Now, none of that would be possible without all of the groundwork that was laid by Dr. William G. Anderson, who is the visionary that dreamed this series into being. Dr. Anderson dedicated his life to serving people, all people, through medicine and his advocacy during the civil rights movement. From founding the Albany Movement, a collection of activists that included the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy, and led to the desegregation of public facilities in Albany, Georgia, to being the first African-American president of the American Osteopathic Association. I want to take a moment right here. I personally want to thank Dr. Anderson. I'm going to ask you to join me in thanking Dr. Anderson for having the vision to create this outlet, to be able to share our histories and herstories. And I want to thank him for the work that he did to move this nation forward. If you would join me in giving a round of applause for Dr. William G. Anderson. Dr. Anderson is not with us tonight, and we miss having him here tonight, but we want him, I know he's watching. Y'all know he's watching, right? Okay, so we just want to make sure that he knows that we're thinking about him and holding him in our hearts. One more thing I want to do before we kind of get into our conversation, I want to turn your attention this way to the print that is on our stage. Y'all. I'm from the South, so I still say y'all. I am so excited about the artwork that accompanies the series this year that is chosen to commemorate the 25th anniversary of our series. It is titled Earth, Backbone, and Brilliance by Lansing artist Brian Whitfield, who is here and who I cannot see right now. Hi, Brian. So this mixed media piece captures the legacy of the series and the osteopathic profession through texture and tone, and it is absolutely fantastic. You'll have a chance to see the actual art piece in the Chrisman Lounge after we conclude this evening. So thank you for the beauty and the creativity embodied in this work. Okay, so I'm excited about the speakers you're gonna hear this year, but I'm really excited that we're doing something new and fun tonight. Fun fact, last year we highlighted students from the College of Music and the MSU Gospel Choir, and we had the first ever concert in the Slavery to Freedom series. And as it concluded, so Reverend Sekou, I was exhausted, right? And we're celebrating, ooh, we made it through. And Dr. Anderson walks over as, you know, we're cleaning up, and he says, this was wonderful. And tomorrow you can plan for the one next year. And I was like, uh-huh. So this isn't exactly that, but it does mesh conversation dialogue with you, with one of our tremendous social justice activists, and that tradition, our tradition in the Black culture of really infusing music and art into that. So I'm excited for that tonight. Okay, so I'm gonna let us get back to the band in just a little bit, but I want you to hear from Reverend Sekou as well. So, Reverend Osagyefo Sekou, I didn't give him your whole government, is a noted activist, theologian, author, documentary filmmaker, and blues, soul, gospel musician. Wherever people are catching hell, I try and show up, he says of his work, which spans from concerts worldwide to in-person organizing in troubled places, from Charlottesville, Virginia, to Beirut, Lebanon, to my hometown, New Orleans, Louisiana, after Katrina, and importantly, Ferguson, Missouri, after the death of Michael Brown, Jr. I'm gonna add this piece, but he doesn't show up without an invitation. Okay, he doesn't just show up in people's place. He waits for them to invite him and ask him to help. He's helped to train over 10,000 clergy and activists in militant nonviolent civil disobedience throughout the US as part of the Deep Abiding Love Project. Reverend Sekou, as Ardeen mentioned, was selected by Ebony Magazine's Power 100, the NAACP History Makers in 2015, and he's on the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts 100 list of creative thinkers. So we're gonna hear from Reverend Sekou and the Freedom Fighters in a little bit, but first, a conversation. So Slavery to Freedom family, you've already welcomed him, but please let's give a warm welcome to Reverend Sekou.
Thank you.
All right. So we went to a class this afternoon, and I've heard you say, and I share this sentiment, that I'm always betting on the youth. I'm always betting on the young people, right? The students we were in class with today asked such thoughtful questions, I wanted to throw all of mine away. But it was too late to start over, so here we are. All right? So let's do it. So while it was unplanned, the Michigan weather determined that you were gonna actually kick off the series this year, so no pressure. I just mentioned that to say I think it's a divine moment that you're here now. So Again, welcome to our college. Welcome to Michigan State University. I like to always open by giving honor to those who have come before us, those who have really poured into us, made the way for us. I think that's really important this year, again, right? Because in this moment, I think for years maybe we took for granted commemorating our histories and herstories. So I'm gonna pause to give you a moment to really talk about ancestors, trailblazers, those who have had impact, significance in your life and work. I wanna give you an opportunity to speak their names and talk about why they're significant to you.
Well, first, let me just say thank you to Dean Gilbert for the invitation, and to Sister Barbara, who has been extremely kind to me, and it's the reason why my hair is pretty. And got me a hair appointment, and I got a shave, and my wife won't talk about me when I get back to the house.
That's always a good thing.
And to Sister Dean, thank you for your presence as well. And Brother Goodness for your work with the medical students, and dear sister for singing for us. I would begin with the people who raised me. So I want to raise the name of Houston Cannon and Elder James Thomas, my grandmother and grandfather. And then the community, the people who produced me, Miss Roberta, Mr. Andrew, Deacon John Hancock. These are towering figures to me. They tore off the best piece of themselves and they sewed it into a quilt that covers me to this day. And so I just want to begin there, because all I am and hope to be comes from those people who raised me in that little old place I'm from called Zen, Arkansas. They got about 11 houses and 35 people. And so I'm deeply grateful for the people. I was loved. God, they love me. Sometimes I wonder if they love me too much because the world is so harsh. So I raise their names. And then I want to raise the name of the great Harry Belafonte, who was a mentor and guide. And we used to fuss a lot. And I used to tell him, Mr. Belafonte, we called him Mr. B. Mr. B, just because you tall, good-looking, rich, and famous don't mean you right. And so I want to raise his name, who is very kind and protective of me. And then I want to raise the name, what's been such an honor for me to be here is that the speakers you've had in the past, John Lewis, C.T. Vivian, Joseph Lowry, these are men I knew and who poured into me. And then I want to raise the name of Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, who named me. And all of those folks who just poured so much into my life that I am eternally grateful. And so I take it a great honor to be able to speak their names in this space.
So thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit about your work in organizing in Ferguson. We're about 10 years out from that time. If I think in terms of historical reference points, I think what we're seeing today is traceable to some of that work that you were, movement work, organizing work you were doing in Ferguson. Can you discuss the impact of both the moment and the movement during that time? Are there particular things, lessons that we learned, right? Are there some strategies or tools that are important to this moment? And then, on the other hand, are there things you think that we should adapt or even abandon, right? That this moment calls for something different?
Well, I would want to first locate Ferguson within a broader global context, right? So to 2018, we have the economic crisis where 40 million people go into poverty overnight. We see the rise of Occupy Wall Street, where the primary form of protest is the occupation of public space. Following that, we have the Arab Spring that is not only the occupation of public space, it is a disdain for what previous generations yearned to be a part of. And we see that as evidence in the streets of Ferguson, that there is a occupation of public space, a disdain for what previous generations have worked for, right? So it's like, it became a critique of the entire system versus making the system more humane. And Ferguson gives that. And there is no Black Lives Matters movement without Ferguson. So the night that Darren Wilson was acquitted, they announced that they would not be bringing charges to the murderer of Michael Brown. Black Lives Matter was tweeted 9 million times that night. The Guardian magazine will write, a newspaper will write an article and call it the Black Lives Matter movement. And so this happens and emerges in the streets of Ferguson. I think there are a couple things in terms of that if we study that particular moment, right? So in 2013, the Obama administration would transfer about $213 million of military equipment to police forces. So this is why you see such militarization of the protest over the last decade, because a lot of the resources had come in from the war in Iraq, and they needed to put those resources somewhere, and so they wound up in police departments. So this is why you see tear gas, and you see the military-style tanks on the street and police officers with military-grade weapons, because of that has been transferred in 2013. So we can see the militarization of police forces under that time by virtue of the transfer of those resources. The other piece that we can see is that the old models of leadership are obsolete. So the kind of singular, charismatic Black man who's going to be Moses and lead us to the promised land, like those days are over. Right? That's just not where young people are. That's not where their sensibilities are. And so I think we saw that. And then I think in terms of the contradictions, and I actually teach a course at Seattle U called Black Lives Matter and the Legacy of Martin Luther King, and I use Ferguson as the entree. I think there are a couple mistakes that we made. And one of them was there was a lack of political education. Now, so you all understand that we were in the streets in Ferguson for over a year, right? It was the longest protest of Black people since the Montgomery bus boycott. And it was mostly young people led. At a moment where we have a Black president, Black attorney general, Democratic governor, and Democratic mayor. Right? And so all the illusions of a post-racial society evaporated. Right? This was just a political reality that we're dealing with. And so, but one of the challenges that we had, because we were so occupied, and we were literally bailing thousands of people out of jail, and some of us were on no-fly list. You know, people were being tailed by the FBI. It was a dark moment in American democracy, and a beautiful one at the same time. But we hadn't prepared young people. There was not enough political education. And so folks just, a lot of times, were just kind of dangling and didn't have a sense of history. And we just didn't so that was one mistake we made. Another thing that came into sharp relief was the inadequacy and the distance of the Black church from Black youth. Right? So young people did not have a relationality with the Black church. So they didn't trust preachers. Preachers were often on the wrong side. So imagine you 15, 16, 17 years old, and you got tear gas last night. And then you see the preachers praying for the police officers who just tear gassed you while telling you to get out the street. Right? So I think it revealed for me a rupture between the Black church and Black youth. And then the last piece I think that emerged for me is oftentimes, because I was one of the many spokesmen in Ferguson, so I was on television a lot, people thought I had more sway over young people than I actually did, right? They thought like I could tell them what to do, which was just not the case. They wasn't the greatest asset was their greatest liability, which is, excuse my French, they didn't give a fuck, right? So they weren't gonna listen to me, right? But people thought I had a lot more power than I actually did. But what I learned was what saved me in the street was pastoral. So in the 90s in St. Louis, I buried a lot of their old, right, because the gang culture had just swept through. I'm gonna tell my age. Anybody know Ice Cube's Summer Vacation, that song? So Ice Cube, do y'all know who Ice Cube is at least? You know who Ice Cube, okay, you know who Ice Cube, okay. So Ice Cube makes a song called Summer Vacation, which is about going to St. Louis and setting up the drug trade. In the 90s, St. Louis was #1 in the country in murders, and I did more gang funerals than I can count, in part because other pastors wouldn't do them. And so when I came into the streets, and I'm in a collar, the first instinct, excuse my French again, they would be like, fuck them preachers, right? That was their first instinct. And then it was like, no, he cool. He buried my uncle. Oh, he came to my school. He went and got my little brother my uncle out of jail. And so it said to me, what I intrinsically knew is that if we're in the life of young people, they'll trust us. But we gotta be in their lives and be in relationship with them in a deep way. And so those are the few of the lessons that I learned. And also, you probably shouldn't run from the police in church shoes, because it'll mess up your sciatica.
Important lessons, though. I want to come back to that in a second, but I kind of want to follow our conversation about legacy, right? So in the first 2 months of the year, we take time usually because of Martin Luther King Day, because of Black History Month, to really spend some time reflecting on the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There are those that understand King in the legacy, the lineage of a Howard Thurman, both of whom are important to you in your work. So I want to get to my question, but can I read to you? I want to read a passage from Jesus and the Disinherited as context.
So we should stand when you read Howard Thurman.
Okay. we can.
Y'all need to stand when you read Howard Thurman. This is a spiritual genius.
Yes, he is. So he writes, many and varied are the interpretations dealing with the teachings and the life of Jesus of Nazareth. But few of these interpretations deal with what the teachings and the life of Jesus have to say to those who stand at a moment in human history with their backs against the wall. He continues, to those who need profound succor and strength to enable them to live in the present with dignity and creativity. Christianity has often been sterile and of little avail. The conventional Christian word is muffled, confused, and vague. Too often, the price exacted by society for security and respectability is that the Christian movement, in its formal expression, must be on the side of the strong against the weak. This is a matter of tremendous significance, for it reveals to what extent a religion that was born of a people acquainted with persecution and suffering has become the cornerstone of a civilization and of nations whose very position in modern life has too often been secured by a ruthless use of power applied to weak and defenseless people. You can have your seat. Now that's powerful because that's how he opens his book. That's like page 1, right? So again, even I have been thinking about, especially as you were coming, King and that legacy that I see you in, but also particularly his letter from the Birmingham jail. So you've kind of alluded to this in the previous question. So in this particular letter, he's questioning, critiquing faith leaders whom he sees as compliant through their absence and their silence, right? And being in league with the strong against the weak. So here's my question. As an organizer and as a pastor who trains folks with their backs against the walls, as Thurman might say, are we now in what you would describe, as you have described, a Kairos moment, or one when God just breaks into history, interrupts history? Is there now still a place, is there still room for a conversation with those who are sitting on the sidelines, right? Is there a conversation to be had, or is this just simply a God moment?
Well, you know, I would begin with one of the myths. So interesting enough, before Michael Brown was killed, I was a scholar in residence at the King paper. So I was actually at Stanford going through King's unpublished papers. And there's an interesting article, oddly enough, in Playboy magazine, January 1965, where King goes through all of his mistakes. And the reason why it's his longest interview is because Alex Haley does the interview, and because King and Malcolm share a lawyer named Clarence Page. And so Clarence Page had told King that this is the guy who's working on Malcolm's biography, so King sits with him longer. And one of the things is that particularly even in Albany Albany was actually King's first defeat, the first time, because the police just ignore them, like they won't take them to jail, right? Because nonviolence depends upon the violence of the police. And so they just ignored him, so he feels like it's his first defeat, and he's really distraught afterwards. But I want to jump back from that to say that one of the things that young people are competing against is a myth, right? So the myth of King is that everybody in every black church participated in the civil rights movement, and that's a lie. Right. In Montgomery, 125 or so black churches, less than a dozen participated in the movement. Birmingham, 500 black churches, less than a dozen participate in the movement. And so we set young people up over against this myth of which they can never achieve, and this assumption that they're all getting along. So do you know the name Bayard Rustin? Do y'all know the name? Openly gay black man who organized the March on Washington, ended 15 minutes ahead of schedule. I'm only convinced a gay black man could keep all them preachers in their place. But Bayard Rustin, right, would, in his own words, be unceremoniously dismissed from the Montgomery bus boycott, put in the trunk of a car and driven out of town because a black journalist, Carl Rowan, is going to reveal that he was a member of the Young Communist Party and that he had been arrested for having sex with a man in a car. Because you know that used to be illegal in America. But Bayard Rustin is the one who convinces King that nonviolence is more than a tactic, it is a lifestyle. This openly gay black man who will write the Constitution for the SCLC, do his first fundraisers, and will go on to coordinate the March on Washington. Strom Thurmond will take the Senate floor on the eve of the March on Washington and filibuster to denounce Bayard Rustin. And so I wanna just lay King in the context of a history of a people and in the context of a movement, and dispel the myth that everybody over a certain age marched with him. What's significant about the book that you read from, Jesus and His Inherited, King kept it with him at all times. He took this because Howard Thurman was his, what we would call now his spiritual director. So Howard Thurman would come to their house when King was a child and a young man, and he carried Howard Thurman's Jesus and the Disinherited with him. I don't know if we describe this moment as a Kairos moment. but in my Pentecostal parlance, I would say the devil is so busy. Right? And I don't care what your politics are, but what they tell us in the history of the Western world, we do know that when leaders begin to attack democratic institutions, we should be worried. Because this is what Mussolini did. This is what Lenin did. The totalitarian regimes throughout human history have always attacked the institutions and questioned their legitimacy. And so we see this as a pattern. We also see a pattern in the history of the Western world. Totalitarian regimes have always started with gay folks, but they never stopped there. So in Nazi Germany, the first books that were burned were books about gender and sexuality. That was the first books that they burned. The first building they burned down was a gender clinic that did gender reassignment surgery. So regardless of what you think about trans folks, you need to know that when they start down that road, they not stopping. That trans and queer people are often the canary in the coal mine for you non-West Virginia folks. Coal miners will take a canary and send it into a mine to see if there's enough air, enough oxygen. And if they don't come back out, they know that there's not enough oxygen. And so queer people tend to be the canary in the coal mine in the Western civilization. And so those things. So I'm not sure. I think the Kairos moment in terms of who's sitting on the sideline, you know, the way it functions out is that history shows us it's always only been a small group of people who are willing to lay their life down for something bigger than themselves to change history. Right? So it's always only a few who are willing to do that. I think it can be a potential Kairos moment if we respond to the level of demonization and draconian approaches to people's lives, right? So this is the 99th year of what we call Negro History Month, which became Black History Month. So Carter G. Woodson, who founded Negro History Week, which will become Black History Month, got his in 1926, so we're in the 99th year of this celebration. Did so because when he was, he's the second black person to get a PhD from Harvard in history, W.E. Du Bois being the first. And the reason why he started Negro History Week is because he was told at Harvard that his people had no history. That's why it started. It started as an act of rebellion to articulate that these people called black have a history that is worth celebrating. And so I think that the attacks on DEI, the attacks on trans folks are just the beginning of an attempt to roll back the promise of the civil rights movement and the promise of women's movement and the promise of because there's a fundamental belief that those who have been historically othered have gotten too much, and that we need to return to something, and that returning discourses are always features of fascist regimes, because it's about restoration and order, and the weird, like J.D. Vance, the weird thing, daddy's home. Like, that's weird, dude. Like, he ain't my daddy. And the fact that you call him daddy is weird, right? We could probably have a whole conversation about the psychosexual dynamics within the Republican Party, but I don't think that's the nature of this conversation. Not tonight. Maybe later we'll talk about it. But anyway, so I don't know if it's a Kairos moment. I do know it's a moment in which we need to take stock about what kind of risks we're willing to take. You know, like, because when you hear the Democratic Party, Hakeem Jeffries saying, we don't know what to do. In Korea, they showed you. You remember their president recently declared himself president forever. The Congress went to his house, went through armed guards, and said, "You can't stay here, man. We not doing that here. If you up north, maybe you could do that in North Korea, but you're not going to do that here." And so I think it's a Kairos moment if we're willing to respond with the kind of risk taking that is necessary. And I actually think that's going to come. I just don't know when, because I actually think he's going to overreach. I think there's going to be an overreach. I just don't know what that overreach is. But I think there's going to happen a moment in which people are going to be like, yeah, we're not going for that. You can't do that. You know, you can't. It might be the passage of the SAVE Act. You all know what the SAVE Act is? So there's an act that is being proposed coming out of Project 2025 that says your last name, your name has to match your birth certificate name. So that ain't just about trans people. That's about women who were married and have not changed their last names on their birth certificate. So that means 6.69 million women won't be able to vote if this is passed. Right? So that might be the overreach if it's passed. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I feel like there's going to be an overreach, and that'll display to us. But last, I just want to say this. We are in a battle for the soul of Christianity. Right? We're in a fundamental battle. And we've always been in that battle. People use the Bible to justify slavery. People use the Bible to fight against slavery. You know, Roe v. Wade begins in a church basement among United Methodist women. First abortion clinic opened in the U.S. was opened by Judson Memorial Church in New York City. And then there are folks who use the Bible to be, quote unquote, pro-life until you're born, and they don't care about you. But and so I think that we're fighting over the soul of Christianity. And to be honest, it's a fascinating time to be a theology professor.
So let's take that a step further. So historically, the black church has been foundational in the black community.
A segment of it.
Yeah.
A segment of it, yeah.
So let's talk about that, right? So we find ourselves now in a space where there are, within our community, at least 2 generations who would say they're unchurched. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean they don't believe, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean they're people without faith. Mm-hmm. But they may not go to church regularly. They may, they may have some, as we talked about earlier, have some questions, right, that cause them to have some distance. You've kind of just taken us through a role that the church, Big C Church, has played. But thinking about where we are now contextually, what is the role? Is there a role for the black church today? Because you've talked about that a little bit.
Well, I think there's clearly, right, so for instance, this weekend, over the last week, a group called the Proctor Conference, the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, which is probably the largest gathering of black progressive Christians in the country. Seminarians and Christians, largely Baptists and AME, right, who tend to be the most literate, right, in terms of they're the ones who place an emphasis on education the most. So you got Jeremiah Wright, Freddie Haynes, Tracy Blackman, Reverend Gina Stewart. You have folks who are luminaries in black church world there doing important work. So that gathering actually is going on now. And so I think it has a role to play and has always had a role to play. The question is, I think, and then of course there's a long tradition of white progressive clergymen, the great William Sloane Coffin and John Collins, great United Methodist pastor, and Dick Fernandez. We can go on and on of these the great Walter Wink, white brother whose books were so radical that they banned them in South Africa. That's one of my teachers, right? And so I think there's a role that the church has to play the challenge is that clergy, we're used to going in to crowds sitting down listening to us. And that's just not the moment that we're in. Is that we have to be willing to walk alongside, sometimes behind, and in some instances get in front of young people, not because we want to lead them, but we're going to keep the enemy from getting to them. That they got to come through us to get to them, right? So that we might be a hedge of protection around them. And so I think that, because churches historically are on the wrong side of history, right? I can hear my professor, the great James Cone, say, religion always shows up late, right? So Birmingham, letter from Birmingham jail is a letter in response to clergy who have published a letter and told King, you need to slow down, right? Right, you need to slow down, stop doing all of this, right? So right, or we see the blessing, something like 90% of white evangelicals vote for Donald Trump, right? With an understanding that he's bringing God's order and law back to the nation. And that's how they understand him, as God's man. Right? Now, I don't have a heaven to hell to send nobody to, but I don't believe he's saved, right? As the old saints would say, he don't know Jesus in the pardon of his sins, and he definitely don't know holiness. Right, but I do believe, right, so there's a way in which religion is used to justify more blood has been shed in Jesus' name than any other name in human history. More than Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, more than Buddhism, more than any other religion in the world. There have been masses of people slaughtered under the auspice of the cross. And so sometimes I feel like an evangelist to the religion, trying to save it from itself. And so I think that Kairos moment, perhaps if we respond adequately, I think the church has a role to play, but it has to play that role in the conversation with a broader movement, right? So, and churches have always played a role in the broader movement, right? So Stanley Livingston, Jack O'Dell, right? These are former communists who work alongside King. You have an openly gay black man. Bayard was never closeted, right? Working alongside Dr. King. You have labor unions working alongside Dr. King. You have the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, many of them who are atheists. You know, Kwame Ture, my namesake, was an atheist. But what's interesting, he would tell me this story. He says, look here, man, I don't believe in all that stuff you believe in. But I do know when the Klan surrounded our houses and they were shooting their shotguns in the houses because we were registering votes, when we sang a hymn, something happened. I know that much, right? So I think it has a role. I think it has a role, and I'll say this lastly. And I actually think Pentecostalism has a particular role to play. And it's because the reason why I believe Pentecostalism has a particular role to play is because of its emphasis on transcendence, right? So, great Albert Camus writes his meditation, The Myth of Sisyphus, on suicide, why suicide is an option. And I always just say Camus just ain't had no oil on him, right? So because the best of the black religious tradition in general begins with a revolutionary notion, which is that black people are human. That's a relatively new ideal in the American empire. Right, that's a new idea, right? So the vast majority of time in the history of the country, it was believed that we were not human. And so the black church places an emphasis that black people are human. And then second, it's transcendent. And so through Pentecostal forms of worship, you are able to transcend the material conditions and not let them have the last word. And so this is why in black religious traditions, you hear people say Jesus is a bright and morning star, right? That is a theological critique of in a civilization that is filled with darkness, because you can't see the morning star unless it's dark. Or when they say he's the water in dry places, right? It's an acknowledgement of the suffering, but it never lets it have a doctor in the courtroom. A doctor in the sick room, a lawyer in the courtroom, a friend to the friendless, a mother to the motherless. It acknowledges the darkness, right? It's not escapism. It's not spiritual bypassing. You ain't going to yoga your way out of it. It's going to name it. And I do yoga, so I'm not poking fun. Yes, I am. I am poking fun at yoga people. But it's going to name the darkness, but laugh is half the word. And so even if the black church as an institution can't play a role, its epistemic framework, its ideas, the way in which it negotiates time and space and faces evil and not let that evil have the last word or absorb you, I think can play a fundamental role into trying to rescue the democracy from the brink.
I didn't prepare you for this question, but you talked about risk. Someone as sacred to me as Howard Thurman is to you is Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yes.
And so as you were talking about risk, right, what are the things that we're willing to sacrifice or to say, if it costs me everything, right, I'm willing to do it. And so I think about her organizing in the fields as a sharecropper, right, having been run off. And then I also connect the risks you take, the willingness of a black man in a carceral state to say, I'm willing to say, take me to jail, when we know about how unsafe that is, right? So talk about what you think some of the risks, right, for today. And I don't think we know them yet. I don't think we know all of the things or what we must say we're willing to risk, what we're willing to sacrifice.
As you said that, it made me think of a hymn that Fannie Lou Hamer used to sing. So, oh, freedom.
Yes.
Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And so for me, like, that is the risk. Like, I'm not, like, and there's a tradition of black people taking, right? So there are women who would throw their babies over water on the slave ship. They would take their babies and throw them in the ocean before they let them be slaves. Right? When we think about Nat Turner, Denmark v. Gabriel Prosser, and I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying, at a moment when they knew they would be killed, right, they put it all on the line. They risked everything. Interesting enough about Denmark v. Gabriel Prosser and Nat Turner, when you see the passage of anti-literacy laws, like meaning that not wanting black people, making it illegal for black people to read, it was because of slave rebellions, because it was the literate slaves who organized the rebellions. Right? That's what the attacks on DEI are about. They don't want you to be literate, because if you're literate, you'll rebel.
God didn't say that. You say God didn't say that.
They don't. If you're literate, you'll if you got some schooling, you're right, because education is freeing. This is why totalitarian regimes, every one of them hate intellectuals and hate artists. Because intellectuals and artists are going to help get you free. And you ain't going to listen to that foolishness. And so I think that part of what that risk-taking is, and for me, is deeply personal in the sense of, so the people you heard me talk about, Miss Houston Cannon, Elder James Thomas, weren't my biological grandparents. So my biological grandparents, R.B. Breselman and Millie Purcell, were college educated at a place called George Smith University in Missouri. It was burned down by the Klan. And my grandmother, Millie, my biological grandmother, died from complications of my father's birth. My grandfather, R.B. Breselman, subsequently married one of her students, Houston Cannon, and she nursed my father as her own. My biological grandfather would die in 1955. She would remarry a man named Coon Lucas. He was so light-skinned that he looked like the white Lucases because he was the progeny of a slave-master relationship. Coon Lucas would die, and then my grandmother will remarry a man named Elder James Thomas. And these are the people who raised me. And so, and my grandmother was 55 years old when she got me. She had raised her children. And she took this boy, and she loved him deeply. And so part of what my experience as a child, I told you I wasn't gonna cry. Part of is one of the reasons I do the work that I do is because I was loved so deeply. I remember everything I did, they made me think that I was gonna be the best at it. So I remember I built some little raggedy basketball hoop, right? And they was like, that boy gonna be an architect. That everything, they poured so much into me. And that if this old woman and this old man who had raised their children could take this little boy who wasn't theirs biologically and raise him, the least I could do, right, is stand up for some queer kids. That's the least I could do. And I don't get a cookie for that. I don't get a cookie for defending trans children because I was loved so deeply. Right? I remember I said this earlier. I wrote this song called Welcome Home. And I was pastoring in New York, and you know, in New York City, on any given night, there are about 10,000 homeless children on the street, most of them in the sex trade. Because there were queer kids who got put out there, they saved and sanctified houses. And so they got to New York because they could work the sex trade and make a little money. So we would have them come to the church, you know, like, and get what they call soft skills, like how not to choke your boss, how to write a resume, you know, and that kind of thing. Right, that's soft skills. Because sometimes, you know, your boss make you want to choke them. And so I'm kind of tinkering around on the piano, and I'm gonna make KG mad. He hate when I play. He ain't here, but don't tell him, man. I'm tinkering. I think this mic's on. I'm tinkering around, and I can't play. I don't play good at all. But I'm tinkering around on the piano. So I'm just tinkering around, and a little kid walks up to me and says, "Do we have to listen to you preach?" And I was like, "No, they pay me for one sermon, and they're not getting another one for free." And then the little baby, and at this point, I don't know nothing about pronouns or anything. So I can't tell if it's a boy or a girl or anything, you know. And they said, do we have to join your church? And I was like, no, you asked too many questions. and I don't want you in my church. And then the baby said, well, what do you want from us? And it hit me. I was like, oh, you don't feel safe here. And it just grieved my spirit because church was a safe space for me. It's where I mattered. It's the first, anybody ever said an Easter piece before? Right, it's where I celebrated. I couldn't play the piano, but every time I played at church, they would act like I had played Beethoven's Fifth. And so I wrote this little. It says, no matter where you are on life's journey, or where you're coming from, you can always call this place home, no matter where you've been or what you've done. And so that experience for me of being around those queer kids who didn't feel safe in church says to me the least I can do is defend them and care for them.
I get it. Oh, Lord.
Did I leave my mic over there?
Maybe so. I'm supposed to remind you all that we are going to take some questions from you. Do you all have the note cards? I can't see anything. Have you all gotten note cards? Okay, so go ahead and start thinking of your questions. This is going to be my last question. Got to pull myself back together. And then Goodness, I'm going to turn it over to Goodness and Brian, our students. We talked about this before we started. When I grew up, before service, the deacons started. And there may have been music. A lot of times there were not. The organist hadn't gotten there yet, so there was a scripture, time for testimony. My Uncle Junior, who just passed recently, was the head deacon, and often he would sing meters. Y'all know what meters are? Now, I'm going to tell y'all the words, and he going to sing the meter. That's how this going to work, because my retirement plan is for me to sing backup in his band. This was always an experiment, by the way. So the first verse, guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. And remember, right, so meters, we got to tell them what that is.
So because of anti-literacy laws, enslaved people couldn't read. And so typically the literate person would line to him. So it'd be like, guide me out, guide me now, thy great Jehovah, guide me now. No, ain't no meters in here? Great Jehovah.
Y'all know that?
Maybe they
Why
know
y'all
this.
not sing?
Do y'all know, I love the Lord, he heard my cry. So there that tradition of like they would meter the hymn out and somebody would respond, and it takes on different meanings. So in New Orleans is a little different than where I'm from in Arkansas. South Carolina, they doing a whole nother thing, right? But they're I wouldn't have religion, I couldn't feel sometime. I wouldn't have religion, I couldn't feel sometime. There's a man by the river, he's giving sight to the blind. There's a man sitting by the river. He's giving sight. My grandmother's favorite one was, I wouldn't have religion. I couldn't feel sometime. I wouldn't have religion. I couldn't feel sometime. Now, what's powerful to me about the metered hymn is that where it moves sonically, historically, the Catholic Church outlawed that chord because it did something to people.
That's right. That's why I said it was an experiment, right?
Yeah.
So for us, that
Yeah.
first verse, Guide Me, O Thou, right, and depending on who was singing it, it could go quickly or it could go real slow. Now, by the time we got to the second verse, right, something about that chord
Yeah.
start moving some things, right? Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more.
Right. But there's something about those minor chords and what in music theory we call sus chords. They kind of hang off the chords, and so they were literally the Catholic Church called that chord the devil chord because it was so moving that it would open people up and you couldn't control it.
Yeah.
And so this is why actually in a lot of high churches, they have tampers on the organ. You can't play it too loud because there's something disruptive happens in the body when that chord starts moving through you, right? And you feel the vibration of it,
So I talked to you about that because, you know, the third verse is always when it just went left.
Give it to me. It just ran up.
I am weak, but thou art mighty.
Yes.
Hold me. And usually whoever was singing it would say it more than once. And by then the organist had got there. So if they get to that rumble on hold me, the whole church is broke up, right?
It would go up. Yeah.
Hold me with thy powerful hand. And so as I heard you start this evening, it reminded me of that. And the power of that on those dark days. And there have been some dark days early this year, right? But it's held me.
No. Ain't nothing like it.
To the point that he's not here anymore, but when I can remember, and then I can start to feel steady. Right? When hell is breaking loose, I can still hear that or sing myself in the devil's chords, and I'm okay. So before I let our audience ask you questions, that's the power of music for me, is that it can be my steadying, right? An anchor.
You know, it reminds me, so I was in Charlottesville in 2017. Do you all remember what happened then? When Nazis actually marched in the street. It's not funny, but it is funny. I remember as the clergy, we're processing up to the park where they're gathering. And there are men with machine guns. Many of them, the J6ers who were pardoned, right? Like I know them, they doxed me. And so they are lined up across from us with machine guns. And as we're walking up and I see them and I think to myself, Sekou, you're not making good life choices. You need an intervention. Somebody needs to pray for you because this is not smart. But so you know the Nazis were coming by yelling with MAGA hats on. I'm not talking about something I read in a book, waving Trump flags. And he might not be a Nazi, but the Nazis sure think he is. And they're and they would just, you know, yell, and mostly homophobic and anti-Semitic slurs at us. And at one point, one of the Nazis walked up, was like, "What did y'all do? Bring out all the lesbian pastors?" And I kind of looked down the line. I said, "Yeah, you about right. That's all that's out here is a whole bunch of lesbian pastors and me." Right? Because queer women were brave in the face of Nazis. And so, it would get really chaotic, and they'd be screaming and yelling. And then we were supposed to be there silent, and then I went into this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And it would bring him down. Like the demons trembled when we started singing. And it would always, they just come down by virtue of the songs that we're singing. And so that's moving to me. In another instance, I got snatched off the street in Ferguson. I mean, in St. Louis, they had recently this case with just one, Mansour Barbell, was shot and killed by the St. Louis police after Michael Brown. And so we were protesting in front of actually the St. Louis City Police Department, but we were on the sidewalk. And so they snatched me off. They just came and started snatching us off the street, off the sidewalk. And they put us in a place called the Workhouse. And the Workhouse is a notorious jail in St. Louis where people like die every month. So they put us in there to scare us. They could have took us to the headquarters because it was right there, but they wanted to scare us. And we sang for 6 hours. And we're gonna do one of the songs, "We Comin'," that I wrote in jail. And we sang for 6 hours. And it was so disruptive that they had to let us out. They was like, because the other prisoners started singing. And they said, "Oh, we got to get them out of here." And it was, and all the jailers were confused. Like I said, "You just not used to seeing people in jail and still free." And so I think that for me, that's the power of music. And we were playing a gig in Berea, Kentucky. It was an outdoor festival. And so I started talking. We have a song we'll do tonight called "Bury Me." Maybe we'll open with it. "Bury Me," and which we sang in Charlottesville on August 11th. And we couldn't leave the church because Nazis were outside with tiki torches. 600 of us packed in there. And we can leave, and we're singing this song. And so I'm telling that story. And so as we started, this dude yells out, and he has a little child with him, and he yells out, "That's a lie. That was a false flag. Charlottesville didn't happen." And so security was going to go get him. I said, no, don't let him go. Don't bother him. Because when that chord hit, either that demon going to submit or flee. And when that chord hit, he just ran. Right? And I'm not saying he was a demon. I'm talking about what was in him. And so for me, that's the power of music, and for me, the power of Pentecostalism, that I think it has something to say, except for, the homophobia, anti-woman stuff, except that. I still think Pentecostalism, in terms of as a spiritual practice, can help us transcend some of that. And so that's why music is important to me.
So I want to introduce you to two of our students. Y'all can come on. Come on. So this
I
is...
don't like either one of them. They're young and good looking. I mean, put the muscles up. Don't know. Cover the muscles up.
So this is Brian.
Yes.
And Goodness.
Yes, a pleasure.
Our past SNMA president and our current.
Yes,
Oh, there we go.
yes.
And they're going to ask you the question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
You want me to take a seat? Yeah, you want to go first with your question, or should I? Go ahead. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. Very inspired.
Thank you.
I have some questions from the audience that I would just read to you. So the first one is, in your assessment, what is or what can be the tipping point that will ignite this new contemporary movement that is so much needed?
I don't know. I can't, I've been getting calls from around the country, and I'm like, I don't know. I just think I've been just consistently training people, and I'll consistently train folks so they'll be ready, but I don't know what the tipping point is. Because I think so much of this is shock and awe, right? I think it's to overwhelm you, it's to make you feel paralyzed. But I think what we need to be doing is, if I might be Pentecostal, the Lord said to me, a storm is coming, and that we should be prepping for the storm, right? So I don't know what it is. I just think we should be prepared.
Thank you so much for that. Another question, kind of on the note of tipping points. Could a tipping point that you alluded to take the form of another pandemic, like bird flu, measles, and this person also said, thank you so much for your presentation.
I mean, that could be. It could be another pandemic. It could be an overreach around going after some folks that people feel. It could be him saying, "I am the king," and it could be the suspension of the Constitution. I don't know what it is, but I do know we have to be willing to put some things on the line to deal with it. Yeah. Should we grab the band while we're taking the questions? Go ahead.
Okay, and if y'all have more questions, just hand it over to the ushers and they can bring the cards to me. But I'm on the last one for now, and I don't think there's any online yet.
Okay.
But I'll ask this. So it says, King wrote in laments to moderate white pastors. It said, do you see hope for us white folks being humble and prophetic?
I mean, there's a tradition of prophetic white folks, right? So it's not like that's something alien, right? Viola Lazu lays her life down. I mentioned earlier William Sloane Coffin. And if I just might say, there's a thing, y'all can come on out. There's a thing with, so they tell me they got these workshops you can take. And for $99, you won't be racist no more. 2 hours, and you won't be racist no more. And my question to white folks who have taken those kind of workshops, my thing is often, I often say to them, is that, have you ever been to a black funeral? Meaning that somebody loves you enough that when they putting their mama in the ground, they want you standing next to them. Right? That's a different kind of relationality that white folks can have. The other thing I would say is that I don't believe, and this is Ruby Sales, I don't believe in a notion of white privilege. I actually think white supremacy is soul murder to white people. I actually think it deforms your soul. And I think your participation in the movement is not an ally, but as the apostolics would say, that you're working out your soul's salvation, that you're trying to get free, because you understand that that white supremacy has damaged your soul, and because you want to get free, you are participating in the freedom movement. So I understand that I don't get a cookie for supporting trans kids or gay folk. I understand that patriarchy and homophobia damages my soul. It makes me less human. And so I'm trying to get freer, right, when I struggle alongside. And so I don't, so a lot of the kind of in fashion, white allyship, according to what Ruby Sales has taught me, one of the great founders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, is that how are you overcoming soul murder? There's a wonderful line Houston Baker writes in Frederick Douglass's an edition of Frederick Douglass's biography. He says, when former chattel and New England gentry became one, history moved. And so I feel like when white folks understand that it's connected to their own spiritual liberation, then we get some movement. And so when white mothers when they grieve for Trayvon Martin as their own, when white folks see Michael Brown in the street for 4.5 hours and they see their own child in the street for 4.5 hours, I think that's when we move. But an idea that, because allies can check in and out. Freedom fighters, they put their bodies on the line. And so for me, I think that it's one of the things when we're doing bigger shows, right, in terms of when we're, not bigger shows, but when we're doing shows, a lot of times we open up with the question, do you want to get free? Right? And because white folks need to get free too. And so that's my response to that question.
That's powerful.
Yeah. We'll take one more.
Come on.
We can't.
No, because you gotta sing.
Give me yours and I'll do it while we sing. Let's start Bury Me.
Can y'all play? I get to be pastor for 1 second, y'all. Can y'all play something softly while we do this next little part? Let us thank Reverend Sekou. We have some gifts, but let us thank him. So, the first gift is a print. And you also received a proclamation from State Representative Brixey. And so this is for you, and this is to honor your time with us. So usually, y'all, I take some time and thank everybody. I'm going to say very quickly so I can turn us over. Thank you to our sponsors, all of you. Thank you to Uno Deuce. Thank you. Don't thank Barbara. Thank you. Our communications team, the dean's office team that helped us. Everyone, thank you so much. I'm going to let that be that for today. Is that okay? No one's offended? All right, and we're going to now go to the music. So without further ado, the Freedom Fighters.
Bury me in the struggle for freedom. In the arms of someone who knows my name. Cover me with love as the struggle it goes on. Say my name. Say my name. Say my name. Say my
There's power in the name. 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 So in troubled days, my grandmother, she would sing a little song, you might know it. It goes, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Say it with me. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. All in Palestine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. All in the Congo. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. All in Washington, D.C. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. All in these lands sing. I'm gonna let. Can you say it? This little light of mine. Come on, come on.
There they go.
I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
So you have to forgive us. We forget y'all out there. So you heard me talk about that little old place I was raised in, Zen, Arkansas, that had 11 houses and 35 people, where they tore off the best pieces of themselves and tore it into a quilt. Now, Dean Gilbert, I don't know if in New Orleans, did y'all used to have Friday fish fries? Anybody know about a Friday fish fry? And so, on Fridays, my grandfather, R.B. Belzelman, would push the piano out of the house onto the front porch. And you know, they had work from can't see morning to can't see night all week long. But the eagle, he flies on Friday. So they'd have a little money in their pocket. And if the sharecropper man had been good to them, they had enough to get a fifth of Jack. Oh, I wish I could get some help in here. And my Uncle McKinley, he was our family fish fryer. And my Uncle McKinley had done a little time in prison. And he was obsessed with cleanliness, as he had been in that old dirty jail. Now, to be sure, if one was frying fish, it required certain sartorial choices. And my Uncle McKinley used to wear some old Italian loafers that was run over on one side. And because he was obsessed with cleanliness, he would wash his hands all the time. And you know, if that water hit that grease, it'll pop. Don't you hear that grease popping? And now, if you are the fish fryer, you get a chance to decide what the music is. And my uncle liked it really funky. Just let them sit in this grease for a little bit. Is that all right? Is that all right with you? Sister Barbara, the old saints used to say, I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to wave my hands out. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to stomp my feet. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to raise my voice. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to get free. Help me say it. I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to wave my hand. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to stomp my feet. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to raise my voice. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to get free. Oh, I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to wave my hand. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to stomp my feet. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to raise my voice. And I don't know what you'll come to do, but I came to get free. Hey, be alright, be alright, be alright, be alright, be alright, be alright, be alright. Hey, be alright, be alright, be alright. Hey, it's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be. It's gonna be. It's gonna be alright. Yeah. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Help me say. No music. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Be alright. Come on. Come on. together like you believe it's gonna be all right.
Now, I've been watching y'all. Okay. Now we over here, well, me. I done been somewhere between the club and church. I'm trying to figure out why y'all in y'all seats.
Oh,
Because we having that kind of party.
testify.
So, some of y'all worried about your little neighbors. They not worried about y'all. Okay? So on this next one, I want y'all to act like y'all in the same place I'm at, okay? Y'all, can y'all do that? That's a little weak. We're gonna try it again. Can y'all do that? Okay.
Can you help us? Yes, we want freedom and we want it now. Yes, we want freedom and we want it now. Yes, we want freedom and we yes, we want freedom and we want it now. Yes, we want freedom and we want it now. I can't hear you. Yes, we want freedom and we want it now. Yes, we want freedom and we want it now. Yes, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist when they tell you who you can and can't love. Resist, tell them to hush their mouth, 'cause you done had enough. Resist when they tell you who is and ain't your neighbor. Resist when they won't pay you and exploit your labor. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Freedom is a place and a state of mind. May not come when you want it, but right on time. So hold on just a little while longer, 'cause that which don't kill you will make you stronger. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. Resist, we want freedom and we want it now. said, resist. We want freedom and we want it now. Resist. We want freedom and we want it now. Resist. We want freedom and we want it now. Resist. We want freedom and we want it now. Resist. We want freedom and we want it now. Resist. It's our duty to fight for our freedom, to fight for our freedom. Right? It's our duty to win. It's our duty to win. We must love. We must love. It's our duty. It's our duty. Yeah. To fight for our freedom. To fight for freedom. It's our duty to win. It's our duty to win. We must love. We must love. We must deep down in my soul, I do believe that we must love. No matter who's in the White House, we must Can I say it one more time? Can I say it one more time? Can I say it one more time? Listen. It's our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and support each other. We must love and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chance. I believe, 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 so don't shoot, I got my hands up, 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 so please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. So please don't shoot me dead, I got my hands up on my head. Marcus Garvey. No one remember poor Marcus Garvey. Do you remember the days of slavery? Do you remember the days of slavery? Jah will never give the power to a boy, for he come and crucify the dread. Oh time, oh time, oh time will tell. Think you're in heaven, but you're really in hell. Hallelujah, 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 how much more time we got? Zero? We have zero time.
I told you.
Huh? We got to, let's do
I told you it was gonna happen.
let's go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and go on out of here. We're gonna give them the benediction. Go ahead.
We're fighting funk. Oh, okay.
Now, if y'all want to go home, you're going to have to stand up. You want to go home? Get up. Why don't you rest on your feet? Come on, come on.
Get on up. Get on up. Get on up.
Now, how many of you all believe when we fight, we win? Do you believe that? When we fight, we win. 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 Listen, went down to Texas, couldn't believe what I saw. Babies in cages should be against the law. Now it's the honest and the truth be told. It's time for underground. Oh, when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Come on, say it with me. When we fight, we win. 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 We win. Can I introduce these musicians to you? Is that all right? Put your hands together for KG from Memphis, Tennessee on keys. And from Memphis, Tennessee, holding the bottom down. Whoa, on bass. Whoa, on bass. Keeping us in time. From Nashville, Tennessee, Darion on drums. Sitting in with us from a group called Common Hymnal from Detroit, Michigan. Jalen. Yeah. My. Thank you, well. Thank you, well. Yeah. Jalen. And you know, just give us a little of that sanctified tambourine, Sister Bob. Huh? Put your hands together for Sister Barbara, your very own. And you heard her sing the Black National Anthem. Put your hands together for freshman musical student Jeanette. And the captain of this ship, our musical director, Guitar Phil. These are the freedom fighters. And my name is Reverend Sekou. And we pray you got free.